turn on your notification bell. You will still get those information you are looking for. Thank
The Nigeria-Biafra war may have ended, but what caused the war is still prevalent in Nigeria today. That is Professor Falola. Yes, Toyin Falola. Professor, yes. He stated this. He said, it is even getting worse. So what caused the war between 1967 to 1970 is still prevalent and getting worse in the present day Nigeria. That's what this professor said. So the professor went on when he said one of the fundamental problems that the country is faced today is the issue of cultural identity. He said this is causing some clashes in Nigeria's struggle for togetherness. It appears that Nigeria is fragmented along that area, that is along ethnic lines. And he said, how is Nigeria getting this wrong? He asked, how is Nigeria getting this wrong? He went on and said, bear it in mind that when we choose a federal system, what accounted for that choice was the issue of the ethnic divide. He said, because of the ethnic divide, that's why we choose a federal system. And now, when they choose that federal system, the divide was so strong that it led to 3 main regions. Before the 60s, they created the Midwest to add to that divide. So he said, bear it in mind that the political strategy in creating Midwest, so there were combined elements of alliances of northern politicians with others to further fragment the western region. That fragmentation, he said, and the wide range of crises led to the first coup and counter-coup of the 60s. The attempt by Ironsi for a unitary system of government to displace the federal with the argument that with the unitary system, it will reduce some of the conflicts associated with the ethnic divides. That was rejected. And he said the Civil War began. That Civil War, with the loss of many lives, according to him, he said it was calculated around 1970 at 1 million. Did not solve the problem. In other words, all the conditions that created the Civil War from 1967 to 1970 remained, and they are getting worse. That's what the man said. So those things, they are there. And then he continued to say, one could argue that ethnic divides and tensions have escalated in recent times on issues around terrorism, banditry, leading to the demand for state police in the case of Amotekun, attacks between farmers and pastoralists, the encroachment of herdsmen into other parts of the country, the way the Buhari government structured its administration with the impression that all the agencies, principal actions of government are controlled by his own tribe. People in the south are looking at the cabinet and other key areas, and the impression is that the Fulani are consolidating themselves in power. This is also further accentuated by the current struggle for presidential power in terms of how the nominations were conducted. He said this ethnic divide has gotten far worse. This is called the mismanagement of diversity. Diversity has a lot of advantage in your food, in your clothes, in the languages, in performance, in literature, in Nollywood. The advantages are so many, but once you mismanage it, the disadvantages would escalate, leading to fears by various people. If you are Igbo, you are afraid when you got outside Igbo land. If you are Yoruba, if you go to Maiduguri, you are afraid. Everybody becomes afraid of one another just because that diversity has been mismanaged. Instead, without the escalating that mismanagement, things may get out of control. We have seen this in IPOB, nnamdikanu, Ndigbo, calling for a Yoruba nation and other secessionist statements, not just by ordinary Nigerians, but by those who claim to represent them. He went on and said, when we talk about Nigeria's evolution, particularly towards independence, one would say that the nationalist tendencies that we witnessed then were altruistic. But today, particularly as we head towards the 2023 election, the presidential candidates of the major political parties are those that we can refer to as pushing ethnic identities. In the southwest, we have Bola Tinubu. In the north, we have Atiku Abubakar. And in the southeast, we have peterobi. Why does it appear that nationalism is lacking post-independence? He queried. You see, and what the man said is true. But let me say a little thing about him, the professor. Tuyinu Falola is Africa's eminent professor of history, a university distinguished teaching professor, and the Jacob and Sanga Musika Chair in the Humanities, the University of Texas at Austin. He is an honorary professor, University of Cape Town, and president of Pan-African University Press. He has received 3 Yoruba chieftaincy titles, over 30 lifetime career awards, and more than 14 honorary doctorates. So this is the man exactly. So this statement was made, or as when he was a guest at the second distinguished lecture series organized by the Department of History and International Studies of the Lagos State University, Ojo. That is it. So this man have said it all. He have said it all. Look at what is happening now in the polity. Election is fast approaching, and you have candidates. What happened in 1960, in the 60s, they are about repeating themselves now. Because over the years, after the war, these things have not been addressed. The root causes of the war have not been addressed. The government have swept everything under the carpet. First of all, they removed the history from the curriculum of the students. You see, they removed history so that nothing about the civil war, nothing or whatever that caused the war will be, brought to limelight. So that the younger generations or those who were not born then, they will not come to reality or come to terms with what happened in those days. So how can you live a life without a history? How can a society live without a history? And so the country, conceal the history. They don't want the younger generations to get hold of it. And so what's happening in the country is that those things that caused the war, they are still prevalent. They are still happening. We are repeating our mistakes, and those things are happening. And what I was talking about, which means the war may have been over, but we cannot say that the war might not come again because of these things are still happening. We are afraid that the war may come again. Look at what is happening. Look at the feelings. Look at the sentiments in the election now. Yoruba has a candidate. The Fulani has a candidate, or Hausa Fulani, if you like, and the Igbo has a candidate. And these are the major tribe in the country. The Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba. So you see Hausa Fulani, Atugabaka, you see Yoruba, Abalatinibo, you see Igbo, who is a peterobi. And that is the way it is now. This narrative, I tell you, is the same as what was obtainable in the early 60s, immediately post-independence Nigeria. So that is what we are saying. What we are saying, we're not calling for war, but what we are saying is those things that caused the war are still prevalent. And that means the country is moving, precariously to its doom, and if not checked,